11 years of marriage, and Emeka Okafor has mastered the performance of presence without the substance of it. The nod that means nothing, the yes that is not a yes, the specific skill of appearing to be in a conversation while being entirely somewhere else. He is 42 years old, a civil engineer whose construction consulting firm has made him comfortable enough to confuse comfort with invincibility. He fills rooms with his voice and his opinions and his certainty, and he has spent so long being the loudest person in his own life that he has gradually stopped hearing anything that is not coming from himself. Adana is 38. She came into the marriage with the kind of quiet that people who are genuinely paying attention carry, the calm of someone who observes before she speaks and remembers everything she observes. She has spent 11 years building the infrastructure of their shared life, managing the accounts, navigating the social calendar, holding the 10,000 details of a household and a marriage together with the same careful attention she brings to everything. And she has done all of this without needing to be seen doing it, which Emeka has interpreted, incorrectly and consistently, as evidence that it requires no effort. They met at a mutual friends gathering in Victoria Island when Adana was 27 and Emeka was 31, and his firm was 3 years old and still finding its footing. She was the one who organized his first client dinner, who designed the presentation materials for his third major pitch, who sat beside him in the early years of the firm's growth and understood every number in every account because she was the one managing them. When the firm began to succeed, Emeka began to believe, in the gradual way of men who confuse proximity to work with authorship of it, that the success was essentially his own production. That Adana's contributions were domestic. That what she did was support, which in his vocabulary meant something secondary to the thing being supported. She noticed this shift. She notices everything. She did not make a confrontation of it because she is not a confrontation-first woman. She is a builds, her position before she speaks woman, and the position she is still building in those years is the marriage itself, which she is not ready to abandon. Then her father passes away 16 months ago. Chief Obiora Nwosu, 71 years old, a retired banker from Enugu who understood money the way few people do and who understood his daughter's marriage with the clear-eyed assessment of a man who loves his child too much to be comfortable with what he sees. He leaves Adana an inheritance structured specifically and entirely in her name. Not jointly. Not subject to matrimonial claim. Hers. When Adana reads the inheritance documentation, she understands that her father saw what she has been too invested in the marriage to fully name, and that this is his final act of care for her, making sure she has a floor that belongs to her regardless of what happens above it. The money is significant. Emeka knows it exists, she tells him at dinner on a Thursday, the figure and the structure of it. He says, "Good, that is good." He is looking at something on his phone. She notes this. She files it in the place where she files things that matter. She has been watching the Grand Soleil Hotel for 14 months before her father dies, watching it with the careful, patient attention she brings to anything she is seriously considering. It is a 5-star property in Victoria Island, caught in a shareholder dispute that has made its current owners motivated to sell cleanly to the right buyer. The hotel has good bones, a strong location, a reputation that has survived the ownership turbulence, and a management team that is waiting for stable leadership to perform at full capacity. Adana has studied the financials, walked the property twice as a guest to understand it from the inside, and held her position until the moment when her father's inheritance gives her the capital to move. She tells Emeka she is buying the Grand Soleil. She tells him over dinner on a Saturday evening, the acquisition price, the holding company structure, Mrs. Ease's involvement, the expected timeline for the transfer of ownership. She tells him everything. He nods and says, "Mrs. Ease is handling it? Good. That sounds good." He refills his glass and asks about a mutual friend's upcoming trip to Dubai. She tells him again 3 weeks later when the negotiation enters its final stage. He says, "The hotel thing is going well? Good." And moves on to a story about a difficult client. She tells him a third time on the morning the deal closes. She says the words "The Grand Soleil is mine now" at the breakfast table with her coffee in both hands and her eyes on his face. He says, "Congratulations. We should celebrate." He leaves for the office 20 minutes later and does not mention it again. The Grand Soleil Hotel transfers to Adana's holding company on a Thursday morning 2 weeks before the events of this story. The hotel staff are briefed on the new ownership. The general manager, a meticulous man named Mr. Adebisi, who has been managing the property for 6 years and who is quietly relieved that the new owner appears to understand hotels, begins preparing for the first official walkthrough, scheduled for the following Saturday evening. Adana has been looking forward to this Saturday for 6 weeks. Emeka has been booking suites at the Grand Soleil for 6 months. He books his usual suite for Saturday evening without any awareness that the hotel has changed hands. He was told 3 times by the person who now owns it, and he retained none of it. He checks in with Saad at 7 in the evening. Saad, 29 years old, an events coordinator, uncomplicated in the way he has come to prefer, which is to say she does not require him to be honest about himself. He orders room service. He feels the specific satisfaction of a man who believes he has arranged his life exactly as he wants it. He has not arranged anything. He is a guest in a building his wife owns. He has been a guest in his wife's hotel for 2 weeks without knowing it because she told him and he was not listening. On Saturday evening at 8:15, Adana arrives at the Grand Soleil for her first official ownership walkthrough. She wears a fitted deep blue Ankara blazer over tailored black trousers, her natural hair in an elegant updo, a small ownership pin on her lapel that Mr. Adebisi insisted on for the occasion. Mrs. Ease walks beside her. Mr. Adebisi leads the way through the lobby toward the restaurant where the introductory dinner with senior staff is waiting. They are crossing the lobby. Adana is asking Mr. Adebisi about the east corridor lighting, a detail she noticed in the property survey that she wants addressed, when the elevator doors at the far end of the lobby slide open. Emeka steps out. Saad is beside him. Adana sees him before he sees her. She has perhaps 3 seconds in which she is the only person in the lobby who holds the full picture of what is happening. She does not panic. She does not rehearse. She takes one quiet breath and lets the 3 seconds do what they will do, and what they do is confirm something she has understood at a level below speech for 8 months, that this moment was always going to come, and that she is more prepared for it than he is, because she has been building while he was distracted, and the building is done. Then Emeka looks up. The Grand Soleil lobby is the kind of space that has been designed to make everyone inside it feel that they have arrived somewhere significant. Warm marble underfoot, soft lighting that flatters without being obvious about it, the quiet professional movement of well-trained staff. There are perhaps 30 people in the lobby at this moment. None of them know what is happening at its center. They are about to become witnesses to it without being invited to. Emeka freezes. This is not a choice. It is the body's honest response to a threat that was not on the map. The specific, total stillness of a man who has been running 2 lives with careful precision and has just watched both of them converge in the same 40 feet of marble floor. His face does something that people with Emeka's level of practiced social performance are not supposed to let their faces do. It shows him. All of him. The specific expression of a man who has just understood the full dimensions of what he is standing inside. Saad reads him within 4 seconds. She looks from his face to the woman crossing the lobby toward them and back to his face, and she knows. She is 29 years old and she has always understood this situation with more clarity than Emeka gives her credit for. And what she understands in this moment is that the woman walking toward them with ownership pin and general manager and financial advisor, and the specific composure of someone who is exactly where she planned to be, is not a complication in Emeka's life. She is the architecture of it. Adana does not rush. She finishes her observation to Mr. Adebisi about the east corridor light fixtures, and then she turns her full attention to the center of her lobby and walks toward her husband at the pace of a woman who owns the floor she is walking on and is in no hurry about anything. She says, "Emeka, I did not know you were in tonight." Her voice is warm. It is also completely level, the warmth of a woman who has decided how she is going to handle the next 2 minutes and is handling them exactly that way. Behind her, Mrs. Ease's expression does not move. Mr. Adebisi shifts his weight slightly. Emeka says, "Adana." His voice is a fraction of its usual volume. He says her name the way a man says a word when the word is the only thing he has left. Adana turns to Saad with the open, neutral attention of a woman performing a standard social introduction. She says, "I do not think we have met. I am Adana Okafor. I own this hotel." She says it the way you say your name and your title at a professional function. plainly without emphasis, as a statement of fact that requires no decoration. The ownership pin on her lapel and the general manager behind her shoulder confirm it without being asked to. Sod says her name. It is smaller than she intends. She is a composed woman in most circumstances, and this is not most circumstances. Adana says, "Welcome to the Grand Soleil. I hope your stay has been comfortable." She says it with the courtesy of an owner addressing a guest and nothing more and nothing less, and the specific quality of that courtesy, warm, professional, entirely unrattled, is the most devastating thing Emeka has ever seen his wife do. Then Adana looks at Emeka and says, "I have a dinner with my team this evening. But we should speak tomorrow. There are things to discuss." She does not say what things. She does not need to. The things are this lobby and what it contains, and 11 years of a marriage, and a hotel whose name she told him 3 times, and 8 months of knowing something she has not yet put on the table between them. The weight of "there are things to discuss" lands in Emeka's chest like something concrete because he understands, with the full cold clarity of a man whose illusions have just been simultaneously removed, that those things are going to be discussed entirely on her schedule and entirely on her terms. She turns back to Mr. Adebisi without waiting for Emeka's response. She and her team continue toward the restaurant. The conversation resumes, East Corridor lighting, the staffing plan for the new quarter, the renovation schedule for the second-floor suites. The professional walkthrough of a new owner who has prepared thoroughly and is taking her time doing this right. Emeka stands in the lobby of the Grand Soleil Hotel with Sod beside him and watches his wife walk away from him at the pace of someone who is not walking away at all. She is walking toward something, and that something is hers, and he is simply in its lobby. He told himself for 6 months that he was managing his life. He was a guest in his wife's hotel. He had been a guest in his wife's hotel for 2 weeks and did not know it because she told him and he was not listening. And the lobby of the Grand Soleil Hotel is what not listening for 11 years produces when it is finally done producing. Subscribe to African Tales by Amarachi right now and hit that bell. Because what Adana built while her husband was distracted is only just beginning to be revealed. 14 months before the lobby, before the inheritance and before the email and before any of the specific events that will converge on a Saturday evening in Victoria Island, Adana identifies the Grand Soleil Hotel as the right investment. She has been watching Lagos's hospitality sector for 2 years at this point, studying the gap between what the city's 5-star properties produce and what they could produce with focus management, tracking which properties are in ownership situations that make them available to the patient buyer, building the analytical picture that serious investment requires before a single number is committed. This is not a project she discusses at dinner parties. It is not something she mentions to Emeka's business associates when they ask what she does. She says she manages the household and the family accounts, which is true, and which is also a significant understatement that she has never bothered correcting because the people asking have already decided what the answer is before they ask it. The Grand Soleil has been in a shareholder dispute for 18 months when she first identifies it. The dispute is between 2 founding partners whose relationship has deteriorated to the point where the cleanest solution for both is a clean exit, which makes the property available to a buyer who can move decisively and structure the deal in a way that serves both parties' need for resolution. Adana watches this situation develop for 4 months. She walks the property as a guest twice, once for a Friday dinner with Ngozi, once for a Saturday afternoon spa booking, to understand it from the inside the way you cannot understand a property from documents alone. She tastes the food. She sits in the lobby and observes the service. She reads the staff the way she reads everything, looking for what the management culture is beneath the surface presentation. She is ready to move 8 months before she can move, which is the specific discipline of a woman who understands that timing is as important as analysis. Her father's passing brings the capital. Chief Obioran Wosu was a man who paid attention to his daughter's life with the clear eyes of someone who loves without illusion, and what he saw in the years before his death was a woman of considerable financial intelligence living in the margins of a marriage to a man who did not see her. The inheritance he structured, in her name, entirely, protected from matrimonial claim by the specific language of the estate documentation, is his last conversation with her about what she is worth and what she should never compromise. She reads the estate papers on the morning they arrive and sits with them for a long time and then calls Mrs. Ease and says, "It is time to move on the Grand Soleil." Mrs. Ease has been Adana's financial advisor for 12 years. She is the kind of professional whose value is partly technical and partly the specific quality of discretion that serious private clients require. She has never mentioned her relationship with Adana to Emeka, not because she was instructed not to, but because her professional ethics do not require her to, and it has never come up because Emeka has never asked. He has attended 3 social functions where Mrs. Ease was present, and has retained nothing specific about her because she is not someone who required his attention at those functions. The acquisition takes 6 weeks of legal work and 3 rounds of negotiation. The holding company structure keeps the transaction at a remove from Adana's personal name in the public documentation, which is standard practice for acquisitions of this kind and which has the additional quality, in this specific situation, of meaning that the hotel's regular clientele, including its repeat guests, have no reason to know that the ownership has changed. Adana tells Emeka. She tells him at dinner. She tells him when the deal is in its final stage. She tells him on the morning it closes. She says the name Grand Soleil 3 times across 11 years of a marriage in which she has said thousands of things he did not retain. And the Grand Soleil joins them in the specific category of things his wife said that he acknowledged without hearing. She finds out about Sod 8 months into the acquisition process. Not from a single piece of evidence but from the accumulation of small inconsistencies that a woman who pays attention cannot help but trace to their source. A timeline that does not hold. The quality of his phone habits changing in a way she recognizes. A receipt in a jacket pocket for a hotel dinner for 2 on an evening he said he was at a site meeting in Abuja. She sits with what she knows for 3 days. She does not cry in front of him. She does not confront him in the heat of discovery because she is not a heat-of-it woman. She is a woman who thinks before she moves, and what this moment requires is not reaction but the clear, honest answer to one question. What kind of life do I want to build on the other side of knowing this? She calls Ngozi. Ngozi comes on a Tuesday afternoon and they sit in Adana's kitchen and Adana lays it out. What she knows, what she has built, what she is not yet ready to decide. Ngozi listens the way she always listens. Fully, without rushing toward conclusions. When Adana finishes, Ngozi says, "What do you need right now?" Adana says, "I need to finish the hotel. I need to get it right. And then I will figure out the rest." Ngozi says, "And the lobby moment?" When he walks in. Adana looks at her. She says, "I am not planning a lobby moment, Ngozi. I am planning a walkthrough." Ngozi smiles. She says, "I know. That is what makes it perfect." Adana does not plan the lobby. She schedules the ownership walkthrough for the Saturday evening when Mr. Adebizi's calendar aligns with hers and the transition timeline is ready. Emeka books his suite for Saturday evening because it is what he does on Saturday evenings and he has no reason to change it because he does not know the hotel belongs to his wife because she told him and he was not listening. The lobby is not a trap. It is not a performance. It is the natural, inevitable outcome of a woman who builds things and a man who does not notice until he is standing inside what she built. Emeka calls 9 times on Saturday night. The first call comes at 9:45 while Adana is midway through her ownership dinner. Grilled sea base, a discussion with the head of operations about the spa renovation schedule, the specific pleasure of a woman sitting at the table of something she built and finding it exactly as good as she worked to make it. Her phone is on silent. She sees the calls at midnight when she is in her car heading home. 9 missed calls arranged in a column on her screen like a measure of the evening he has had. She does not call back that night. She answers on Sunday morning. 2 words. Come home. He is at the kitchen table when she arrives. He has been there for some time. The coffee in front of him is cold and he has not noticed, which is its own kind of information. He looks like a man who has spent a night sitting with something he cannot find a way around, which is the accurate description of his last 12 hours. He looks, for the first time in a very long time, fully present. She notes this without sentiment. He says, "Adana, I can explain." She sits down across from him and folds her hands on the table in the way she has always folded them when she is about to say something that matters. She says, "Please do not." He stops. She says, "I know about Sod. I have known for 8 months. I know her name and how long it has been, and I know the pattern of it. I know the hotel. I know all of it. So there is nothing to explain." The explaining would be for your comfort, and I am not available for your comfort right now. The specific quality of Emeka's face during this is something she has thought about, and the reality of it is more affecting than the thinking was. Not because she enjoys his distress, but because it is the first honest expression she has seen from him in a long time. The man who performs certainty and fills rooms with his voice, and nods at dinner conversations he is not having is not present at this table. What is present is the actual Emeka, stripped of the performance, genuinely reckoning with something for perhaps the first time in years. He says, 8 months. You knew for 8 months and you said nothing. She says, I was finishing the hotel. The simplicity of this sits between them like something that cannot be moved. She was finishing the hotel she told him about 3 times, the hotel whose name she said at this table while he was looking at his phone, the hotel he has been using for his affair without knowing it belonged to her because she told him and he was not listening. He says, I did not know it was your hotel. She says, I know you did not know. I told you. Emeka, I told you the name 3 times. You were looking at your phone. You said it sounds good. You said we should celebrate. Then you went to the office. He has nothing to say to this because there is nothing to say. It is true. He was not present enough in his own marriage to retain the name of the hotel his wife was buying with her inheritance while he was using it for his affair. The irony of this is not ironic. It is the precise, specific consequence of 11 years of not paying attention, arrived at its destination. The conversation goes where it needs to go. He asks about the marriage, what she wants, whether there is something to salvage, what comes next. She is honest with him the way she is honest about everything because dishonesty requires an energy she has never been willing to spend. She tells him she does not know yet what she wants the marriage to be. She tells him what she knows, that she has built, in the last 14 months, a financial foundation that belongs entirely to her, and that means whatever she decides about the marriage she decides freely. Not from necessity, not from fear of what leaving costs, but from her own clear assessment of what she wants her life to be. She tells him he needs to reckon with himself. Not for her. That ship has already navigated some significant distance. But for himself. The man who stops listening to his wife, who builds a second life in the margins of a marriage, who cannot retain the name of the hotel she is buying because his attention is permanently elsewhere. That man has a problem that predates Sod and will outlast this marriage if it is not examined. She does not say this cruelly. She says it the way she says everything that matters. Clearly, directly, without decoration. Emeka listens to all of it. He is listening now in the way he has not listened in years, and the specific cost of that timing, that it took the lobby of the Grand Soleil to produce in him the quality of attention his wife has always deserved, is not lost on either of them. He says, I am sorry. He says it without qualification or addendum, and it lands because it is plain and because it is true and because it is not accompanied by anything that diminishes it. She says, I know. Then she stands and says, give me time to think. And Emeka, she pauses in the kitchen doorway, do not book the Grand Soleil again. She leaves him at the table with his cold coffee. Subscribe to African Tales by Amarachi. Share this with someone who needs to see what it looks like when a woman builds before she walks. The final chapter is everything. 6 months after the lobby, the Grand Soleil Hotel is running at the highest occupancy rate it has achieved in 3 years, and the Saturday evening rooftop restaurant is booked 2 weeks in advance, and the spa has a waiting list that Mr. Adebisi mentions with the quiet satisfaction of a man watching a property perform the way he always believed it could if the ownership was right. Adana walks the hotel on Tuesday and Thursday mornings the way she walks everything she is responsible for, thoroughly, from the inside, with full attention. She knows every member of the senior staff by name and by the specific shape of what they do well and what they need support with. She sits in the lobby on Thursday afternoons and watches how the space functions and what it requires. She tastes the menu changes before they go to the restaurant. She reviews the housekeeping standard on the 14th floor because a guest comment last week suggested something was slightly off, and slightly off is not acceptable at the Grand Soleil under its current ownership. Mrs. Ease reviews the first 2 quarterly reports with the satisfaction of a woman whose projections have been met and exceeded and says, as she always says when something performs as expected, you were right. Adana receives this as what it is, confirmation, not revelation. She was right. She is usually right when she pays full attention to something, and she paid the fullest attention she has ever given to the Grand Soleil. The marriage does not survive. This becomes clear not in a single dramatic confrontation, but in the weeks of honest conversation after the kitchen table Sunday. Two people looking without flinching at what their marriage actually was and arriving, separately and then together at a place where together becomes the wrong word, at the conclusion that rebuilding what they had is not the right work for either of them. The right work for Emeka is rebuilding himself, and the right work for Adana is building forward. And those two projects do not require the same address. She files for divorce 10 weeks after the lobby. Her lawyer, a woman named Mrs. Boma, whose reputation in Lagos matrimonial law is the kind that opposing counsel takes seriously before the first document is filed, handles the proceedings with the efficient calm of someone working from a position of thorough preparation. The financial disclosure process reveals, to Emeka's legal team, that Adana's assets include a 5-star hotel in Victoria Island and a holding company with a developing portfolio, valued at a figure that reorganizes the legal team's understanding of the settlement landscape. This revelation produces in Emeka's lawyer a careful conversation with his client about the importance of paying attention to one's spouse's financial activities. Emeka's settlement is fair. Adana's lawyer ensures this not because fairness is strategically optimal, though it is, but because Adana is genuinely not interested in punitive outcomes. She is interested in clean ones. A clean outcome is one she can live forward from without the friction of ongoing resentment. And she has been thinking about living forward for 14 months, and she is ready to do it without friction. Emeka attends the therapy sessions she made a condition of the civil divorce. He attends them imperfectly, one missed in the first month, rescheduled before she has to say anything, but genuinely, which is the thing that matters. Whether this produces in him the version of himself that was always possible is not Adana's work to follow. She has her own work. Sod has moved on with the practical efficiency of a woman who reads situations accurately and understood, from the lobby onward, that the situation no longer had the shape she had been told it had. She is 29 years old and has options, which she is using. Adana is 38 years old and living in the Victoria Island house the settlement confirmed as hers and running the Grand Soleil 4 days a week and developing the holding company's second acquisition on the 5th, a boutique hotel in Abuja, undervalued for reasons she has assessed and found addressable, being negotiated through Mrs. E's with the same patience and precision that produced the Grand Soleil deal. The Abuja property will be hers before the end of the year. She is certain of this the way she is certain of things she has done the full work of understanding. Ngozi comes for Friday lunch 6 months after the lobby. They sit at the rooftop restaurant, the one Emeka used to book, the one that is now booked 2 weeks in advance under its current owner, with cold drinks and the Lagos afternoon doing what it does in the dry season, making everything visible without obstruction. Ngozi looks out over Victoria Island for a moment and then looks at Adana and says, "You know what stays with me?" Adana says, "Tell me." Ngozi says, "You told him. You sat at dinner and you said the name, Grand Soleil, and you told him you were buying it. More than once. He just was not listening." Adana says, "He was not listening for a long time before that." A pause. The city below them moves in its full irreducible way. Then Ngozi raises her glass and says, "To the women who keep talking anyway. And to the ones who know when to stop talking and start building." Adana raises hers. She says, "And to building something so solid that when the moment comes you do not need to say a single word. The building says everything." They drink. The Grand Soleil Hotel at lunchtime on a Friday in the dry season is one of the finest places in Lagos to be. The light at this hour comes from the south and falls across the rooftop in a way that makes the whole island look like it is made of something worth keeping. Adana knows this because she owns the rooftop. She knows the light. She chose this city, this investment, this table. She did not plan the lobby. She did not engineer the Saturday evening collision or arrange the coincidence of her walkthrough with his booking. She told her husband she was buying a hotel and he was not listening, and she finished buying the hotel and showed up to walk it, and the man who was not listening walked into the natural consequence of 11 years of not listening, and she was standing there when he arrived because she owns the building and she is always where she is supposed to be. That is not revenge. Revenge is a plan. What happened in the Grand Soleil lobby was not a plan. It was the inevitable meeting point of a woman who builds and a man who stopped paying attention, arrived at exactly the moment it was always going to arrive. Adana Okafor built before she walked. She built so well that when she walked she did not have to look back. Everything she needed was already standing. That is all. That is everything. That is exactly enough. Subscribe to African Tales by Amarachi right now. Share this story with every woman who keeps building while someone else stops listening. And drop a comment telling us, which moment in Adana's story hit you the hardest? We read every single one. Welcome to the family.